The other huge danger by not having a saw guard would be, we just slide this over to there, say we're still about there, we're still safe for not having a push stick. The other big thing is right here. I'll turn that off. And I'm hanging on until the blade has stopped. So you got to have your brains working here. You can't panic in that situation. If it got partway through and something happened, it got stuck, it got caught on something, you want to hang in there, shut the power off, wait until the blade stops. So in this case here, as I lift these fingers up and pull this back, that slot that's made by the saw blade is called the kerf. And that kerf is what eventually goes over and gets split by the splitter guard. So there's where the name comes from. It's the splitter. It splits the wood into sort of the two parts or the two pieces that you're working on. So as it comes through, the importance of the splitter now comes into play, where this entire piece here cannot kick this way, because that's the big danger with a table saw. As the blade's spinning this way, I'm going to just pull the fence over so you see what happens here on a sort of a larger version of that. When this comes out of the saw, if you don't have that splitter, and as this runs through and over top of the blade, the biggest fear is that this front corner starts to pull itself away from the fence. And as that pulls away from the fence, that's when that binding action occurs. And if you think about what really happens in the process, what you'd actually be trying to do is, if this is trying to kick back, you are physically trying to take and stop that motor with your muscle power. That's what really happens there. As it comes through and it starts to kick this way, because of the movement of the blade, as it comes away this way, it's going to want to twist and fly back towards the operator. So that splitter guard is so important, because once it's there, at that stage, it cannot kick away from that far corner of the fence. And if it can't kick away from there, it's going to run itself through, or as you push it through, and it'll go all the way to the other end, or out the other end of the saw plate. So again, the importance of having that splitter guard or some type of a guard, okay, somehow only an overhead guard. The overhead guard without the splitter is not the best. The riving knife, which we'll see on the one saw later on, as we have a look at them, does the same purpose with an independent overhead guard. And the riving knife is one that comes up and down as the blade moves, and again, it's set to a proper height. We often tell people, and especially the new woodworkers, that no question when it comes to safety can ever be a dumb question. And we all say, oh well, whatever, I've seen someone do it, I can manage that. You just have to be so cautious. And for God's sakes, if you don't know, go and ask. We're talking fingers, limbs. We know people who have been injured from table saws. There's all kinds of statistics that indicate fingers lost or nicks to the hands. And, you have to be so careful. So keep that in mind. When you come into work every day and you're going to use a table saw, what's going on up in here? Make sure your head's screwed on right. If you're tired, that's not good. Alcohol is deadly. Drugs, deadly. Your focus is not there, and you have to focus on what you're doing. What I typically do, and is great for new woodworkers, is to say, here's what I'm going to cut. The saw's been set. Visualize in your mind, what's the process going to be? Is there something in the way? Is there Is there a wrench you'd use for some reason sitting on the table saw that has the potential to vibrate as the machine runs and get caught in the blade? Okay, anything on this side of the fence can't get past the rip vents and into the path of the blade, so that's not as big a concern. But make sure your table's clean and that there's not stuff lying there that could potentially become a hazardous situation. So I'll take and make one more cut here, and this is without the push stick, and then I'll go into using why the push stick and what that process is. So I'll just finish this cut. Again, as soon as you can see the end of the table, get your thumb in behind the wood, your fingers on top. You can take and hook your little pinky over the sawzall, this for the saw fence if it's designed that way. Take this hand and get it somewhere. And if you have to remove that piece, take a push stick. You can pull it from the back, take a push stick from here. Anything so your fingers are not in the way. So here's a longer piece of wood now, and if we're going to take and make this distance smaller, you still have room now to take and run this push stick through. For those of you that play pool, play snooker, 8-ball, whatever you play, you've got a great advantage here. Because this is the process. As it runs through using the push stick, there's a transfer from your hands to the push stick to make this a safe process. And you can read 1,000 books. You can watch 100 videos. Until you actually come to do that actual operation yourself, you don't quite fully understand everything that's involved with it. There's nothing better than actually doing what you've read about and seeing what does and what doesn't work. And it's not the kind of a thing that you want to do a whole lot of trial and error with. You want to make sure you know what's going on. So in this case,